Red sand was running, each grain fine and darkly red, like dried blood sliding through the waste of an hourglass. That was the first thing I saw when I opened my eyes into cold darkness. My head split like it was being hammered, but fear outweighed the pain. I lurched up and snatched the glass. The sand was already down by a third. I am Riven. And what remains in this glass is the time Mia has left to live. My 8-year-old sister. A harsh buzz tore out of an old metal box lying beside me. The indicator light blinked a swollen red like a demon's eye. Awake now, mechanic. Your sister just coughed up blood. I let her hold your torn doll, but looks like she needs antidote more. Memory slammed back like ice water. This morning when Mia and I were breaking a piece of stale bread between us, Vulture kicked the door in. He didn't want money, he wanted my hands. I still saw Mia's eyes when the needle went into her thin arm. She didn't cry. She only stared at me, believing her brother would protect her. And I could not. Don't touch her. I'm in the tomb already. I'll get what you want. Bring the dragon gem back. When the sand runs out, the medicine stops. Don't make me wait. He cut the line. The tomb's silence dropped onto me heavy enough to grind my ribs. I drew a deep breath and forced the bitter knot in my throat down. Anger was useless here. I had to move. In front of me stood a colossal stone door sealing the way into the main section. It was cold, towering, and had no keyhole. The ones before me used explosives, and their bones still lay scattered at my feet for collapsing the tunnel ceiling. I had no explosives. I had no strength. I had only a lockpick kit I built from old springs and ears sharper than most. My father used to say, "Everything has a heartbeat, even stone. Don't break it. Listen to it." I pressed my ear to the freezing face of the door. I closed my eyes. The blackness helped me focus. I heard wind whispering through a seam. Wind goes in means hollow space inside. I drew my thinnest metal pin and slid it into the gap between the slabs. My hand trembled once. Mia curled on the hospital bed flashed up again. "Brother, I hurt. I know, Mia. I'm coming," I whispered to myself, forcing my hands to hold. I pushed fear aside and left only focus. I felt the catch inside. Not a modern spring lock, but an ancient counterweight mechanism. A stone ball held the bolt. If I shoved too hard, it would roll wrong and trigger the trap. I had to be gentle, like I was stroking my sister's hair. A sound tiny, but in my skull it rolled like thunder. The stone ball settled into place. The stone door shuddered dust spilling onto my shoulders. It slid sideways slowly, revealing a long, dark corridor sinking into the earth. A strange smell hit me. Not damp rot, but the sharp stink of wild beast and the raw tang of fresh blood. Vulture said there was a key inside to let me go on. But the instinct of someone who survives told me what waited inside was not an object with no will. I picked up the hourglass and shoved it into the inner chest pocket right against my own pounding heart. The heavy stone door slid back behind me, cutting off the last thin light from the entrance. Darkness slammed down, thick and cold. By reflex, I pressed a hand to my left chest. The hourglass lay still in my inner pocket. My body's warmth bled into the glass that stayed cold. I did not dare pull it out to look. I was afraid to see how much red sand had thinned. But I knew it was still running. Every grain that fell was one more hard breath Mia fought for on that hospital bed. "I can't die here," I muttered. My voice echoed wrong in the wide space. I tightened the strap of the tool bag at my hip, feeling the familiar weight of multi-purpose metal. It was the only thing keeping me tied to life. I switched on the small flashlight mounted on my shoulder. A weak yellow beam cut the dark and struck walls of black, slick stone. This was the chain room. The air here wasn't damp like outside. It was dry, loaded with rusted iron and the smell of a predator. Under my boots, something crunched. I looked down. Bone. Not animal bone. Human. pale, shattered skeletons scattered around the center of the room like toys a child smashed out of boredom. I stopped and pulled a deep breath to read the space. No sign of poison needles or spike pits. The ones here didn't die to traps. They died to extreme physical force, ribs crushed, skulls fractured to ruin. Survival rule number 2 for a lockpicker. If you see no trap, that means the room is the trap. I swept the light toward the center. A pillar of pure black stone rose upright, thick as 3 men embracing it, carved with ancient characters that glowed faintly. And then I saw it. A sharp clang split the air and rattled my ears. From the darkness behind the pillar, a black shape launched out at monstrous speed. I only had time to jerk back, slip, and fall flat. The shape stopped midair, yanked back by thick golden chains, the width of a man's thigh. Its razor claws halted a handspan from my face, tearing the air into a hiss that made my skin crawl. I held my breath. My heart kicked like it would burst through my chest. In front of me was a sphinx, not the ugly fairy tale monster. This was beauty sharpened into terror. A tall female body with muscles rolling under healthy bronze skin. Golden hair spilled over her shoulders, hiding beast ears lifted in alert. Her limbs were chained hard to the central pillar. Amber eyes burning down at me. She did not roar in madness. She watched with the contempt of a queen looking at a worm. I swallowed dry, and my right hand dropped by habit for my dagger. Then I stopped. This blade would not even itch her. I needed to get through the massive stone door, tens of tons heavy on the far side. I could not move it. She could. A quick calculation ran through my head. I had technique. She had strength. This wasn't a fight. This was a deal. I stood slowly and raised both empty hands to show I was harmless. I met her eyes. Beast hybrids smell fear. If I shook, she would mark me as prey. I'm not a guard. I'm not here to steal gold. Then you came to hand over your life. Come closer. I'll break your neck faster than those bugs. Her voice echoed with command like precious metal striking metal. She snapped the chain hard, and the pillar shivered. I need to pass that door, and I know you can't open these chains yourself. It's an ancient mercury-lock. Force only tightens it. Cleo narrowed her eyes. Surprise flickered across her cold face. She stopped struggling and weighed me in silence. I knew I had hit the right nerve. I stepped forward. Each step was a wager with death. Cleo tensed claws, scraping the stone floor into deep grooves. I stopped at the edge of her reach. I slowly pulled out my multi-purpose metal. Thin steel picks glittered under the light. I knelt before the huge stone lock mounted on the pillar. It was the most complex lock I had ever seen. No springs. Mercury pressure sealed inside. I had to listen to the flow of liquid metal to find the balance point. "Don't kill me," I whispered, without looking at her because I'm the only one in this century who knows how to open it. I pressed my ear to the freezing stone. I closed my eyes. The world shrank to the small clicks of metal. I fed the pick in. 1 beat, 2 beats. The mercury gurgled inside like a monster's bloodstream. Cold sweat ran down the bridge of my nose. I felt Cleo's hot breath spill over the back of my neck. She had bent down close. If she flicked me once, my head would leave my throat. A dry crack sounded. The bolt released. The heavy stone split apart. Golden chains slammed to the floor in a thunder of metal and dust. Cleo froze. She stared at her wrists where the red grooves began to fade, then lifted her eyes to me. Her gaze changed from contempt to shock, then into a curiosity edged like a knife. I stepped back 2 paces, keeping distance, and pointed toward the blocked door at the end of the room. "I opened your shackle. Now you clear my path, fair." The massive stone door groaned, grinding against the floor, carving a deep trench, then stopped. The way was open. Ahead of us stretched a corridor, long, narrow, and high. The air was thick with sulfur. The walls were no longer smooth stone, but riddled with small black holes. The floor was laid with large square tiles arranged in deliberate disorder. I swallowed hard. This was the balance corridor. Cleo moved forward, the long golden chain coiled around her arm like a killing weapon. She started to place a foot on the first tile. "Stop! Don't step on the grey squares!" Cleo halted. Her foot hung in mid-air. She turned back with irritation. "Why? I smell wind ahead. The passage is open." "The floor isn't. Pressure trap. More than 50 kilos on the wrong point and the ceiling drops." "How much do you weigh?" Cleo bared her teeth, clearly insulted, but she pulled her foot back. I went first. Survival rule number 3. The guide walks in front. I took a handful of chalk powder from my pocket and tossed it lightly ahead. The dust floated. Some settled on the tiles. Some was pulled into invisible gaps between them. "Follow my footprints," I said. Sweat began to bead on my forehead. "Don't miss by even a millimeter." I stepped. 1, 2, 3. I moved in a zigzag, avoiding tiles with larger seams. Cleo followed right behind. Her breathing was heavy, and her body heat washed my neck. It felt like leading a hungry tiger on a walk through a zoo. We reached halfway. Everything seemed fine. Then a dry snap sounded underfoot. Not me. Cleo. Her long lion tail had accidentally whipped hard into a red tile beside us. A light touch, but from her strength, it landed like a sledgehammer. The mechanism triggered at once. A violent boom shook the corridor. From the 5-meter ceiling, a colossal block of stone studded with iron spikes began to drop. It did not fall free. It was driven down by an extremely powerful hydraulic system, faster than a heartbeat. The shadow of the falling stone closed over Cleo's head. She was too large to turn inside this narrow corridor. She looked up, pupils tightening, bracing for death. In a thousandth of a second, my mind stopped calculating. Only instinct remained. I did not run forward to save myself. I turned back. "Down!" I shouted and threw everything I had into Cleo. I drove my shoulder into her hip. The impact dumped us both onto the floor. Cleo slid aside out of the killing line. I was not as lucky. The shove stole my balance and I went face first under the block's descending shadow. I shut my eyes. "Sorry, Mia." A sharp keng tore through the air. Stone dust blasted into my face. But I felt no pain. I was not crushed. I opened my eyes. The spiked block hung there, stopped 5 centimeters from my nose. Rusted iron spikes pointed straight at my eyes. I turned my head, and I saw something I could not accept. Cleo was down on one knee. Both arms raised, locked, taking the full weight of the ton block. The muscles in her bare arms rose and rolled like steel rope. The veins in her neck hammered. The floor under her split from the pressure. She was holding up a collapsing sky to keep me alive. "Row out! Now!" Her growl carried pain. I snapped back into motion. I rolled hard, crawled out of the danger zone. "Let go!" I yelled. Cleo roared, forced the block up one more beat with all she had, then shot out fast, clean. The block slammed down and pulverized the tiles into fine powder. Dust flooded the corridor. We lay on the floor, gasping. My heart kicked out of rhythm inside my chest. I touched the hourglass in my pocket. It hadn't shattered. Good. Cleo sat up, shook dust from her golden hair. She stared at her hands, shaking from strain, then fixed her eyes on me. No contempt now. No threat. Only confusion, hard and unreadable. "Why did you turn back? You could have run." I pushed myself up, wiped blood from my forehead where flying stone had caught me. Rule 4. If we go together, we come out together. Cleo narrowed her eyes like she was trying to decode a language she had never heard. "Your kind runs when danger shows its teeth. I've watched hundreds like you leave your own behind to live in this pit. I have a little sister waiting at home." I promised her I would never abandon anyone again, not even you. I meant it. Mia alone on that hospital bed was the only force that kept me from becoming a coward. Cleo stayed silent. She looked at me, then down at the shoulder wound, seeping blood. Without warning, she tore a strip of fabric from the hem of her silk and tossed it to me. "Stop the bleeding. Your blood makes me hungry." A clumsy lie. I knew it. Beast hybrids don't bandage prey. She had accepted me, not as a lock tool, as an ally. I smiled and wrapped the strip around my shoulder. "Thanks, move. We're close." I stood. This time Cleo walked beside me. Her long tail swept broken stones aside, clearing my path. We reached it. At the corridor's end, a wide cavern mouth opened like a shark jaw, and blocking its throat was the dragon door. Unlike the crude stone gates outside, this one was cast from a blue-black alloy, glossy and cold. No ornate carvings, only a dense network of energy channels cut across its face, dried out and dead. I stopped breathing hard from the shoulder wound. Cleo stood beside me, lion tail sweeping through the dust, amber eyes narrowed alert. This is the last choke point. Vulture was right. No one gets through alone. I pointed to both sides of the arch. The lock mechanism wasn't hidden. It was a cruel test of cooperation. On the left, a gigantic bronze gear as big as a millstone needed at least 500 kilos of force to turn. On the right, 10 meters away, a tiny, intricate lock sat deep in a stone recess, its latches shifting position every 3 seconds. The rule was simple. One person had to hold the gear turning to open the safeguard, while the other decoded the lock in that same moment. If the one holding the gear released while the other was picking the safety, would trigger a horizontal blade would sweep and sever the lockpicker's hands. I turned to Cleo. See that gear? I need you to turn it. All the way. Hold it. Don't release for even a fraction. Cleo stepped up, set her clawed hands on the freezing bronze. She tested it. The gear groaned, scraped, moved a little. Then a massive spring inside shoved it back. Heavy. But I can hold. And you. Don't get your hands cut off. I'm not dragging a corpse out. I smiled, drew my multi-purpose picks. This time I chose the 2 hardest steel pins. Trust me, I need these hands to hold my sister. I ran to the small lock on the right. Drew in a deep breath. A harsh ozone bite leaked from the door seam. The energy inside was still alive. Start, I shouted. Cleo answered with a fierce roar. Muscle rose across her back and arms. She drove the gear. Metal screamed against metal, echoing through the cavern. The gear turned slow grinding. 1 rotation, 2. The light on my lock shifted from red to yellow. The guard was open. I went to work. My fingers moved over the latches. Click, click, scrape. I had to outrun time. Cleo was bracing against the spring's brutal recoil. I could hear her heavy breathing from the far side. Then the ground under me shook. Not from Cleo, from it. The tremor. This tomb's periodic threat. Every 15 minutes, the geology shifted once. I had been too deep in the lock and lost the clock. The ceiling began to fracture. Dust poured down like hard rain. Fist-sized stones started dropping from 20 meters up. The whole tomb lurched like a ship in a storm. Hurry, I'm slipping. I looked. A large rock was falling straight onto Cleo's position. If she dodged, the gear would snap back. If she held the rock, would strike her head. I didn't think. I could not let her release. If she released, my hands would be cut off, and Mia would die. I drew the dagger at my hip, not to pick, to throw. I twisted and hurled it at the falling rock. The blade struck, knocked it slightly offline. It missed Cleo's head, but slammed into her left shoulder. Cleo roared in pain. Her knees buckled for a beat, but her hands stayed clamped on the gear like a vice. Yellow blood seeped from her shoulder. That throw cost me 1 second. Inside the lock, the horizontal blade began to slide out. Damn it. I snapped back, rammed both steel pins into the final latch. No gentle listening now, only force tearing through the safety catch. A loud detonation boomed from inside the door. The bolt shattered. The alloy door shuddered, then split slowly in 2. A flood of blinding blue light burst out of the seam like a dam breaking, swallowing me and Cleo. The air pressure shifted so fast my ears rang. The tremor stopped. The gear in Cleo's hands stopped turning. It had been locked dead in the open position. Cleo released and dropped to the ground, gasping. Her shoulder was soaked in blood. I leaned against the wall, both hands numb from strain. We looked at each other through drifting dust and that ghost blue light. No words needed. She had not let go even under falling stone. I had risked my hands to keep her alive. I pushed myself up and moved toward Cleo to check the wound. Cleo waved me off. Her eyes burned as she stared past me into the open door. It's there, the dragon's breath. I turned. Inside the wide circular chamber on an altar platform floating over a pool of black water was what I came for. The dragon gem. It pulsed with light like a beating heart. Antidote for Mia, freedom for Cleo. Everything was there. Move, we end this. I reached down and helped Cleo stand. She took my hand, claws drawn in so she wouldn't cut me. A grip between real allies. But I didn't know that was the last time we stood on the same side. The blue light didn't only illuminate. It carried weight. It pressed down on my shoulders the moment I stepped into the final chamber. This was the dragon altar. The silence was so absolute I could hear blood surging inside my own ears. At the center lay a pool of black water surface, flat as glass. Hovering above its heart was an obsidian stone dais, and on it sat what Vulture craved. What I had gambled my life to reach the dragon gem. It was the size of a fist. Not a normal gem, more like dense energy kneading itself into form. Each time it beat, small blue sparks snapped into the air with a thin hiss that still felt like a threat. I swallowed and looked back at Cleo. She stood behind me, one hand holding her shoulder wound, amber eyes reflecting the ghost blue light. She didn't step forward. She waited. Stay here. Vulture said anyone who touches it gets burned. I have a way. I pulled leather gloves from my tool bag and put them on carefully. I didn't trust Vulture. I trusted physics. Energy needs a path. I stepped onto the narrow stone bridge leading to the altar above the pool. My footsteps echoed. 1 step. 2. The closer I got, the more the hair on my arms lifted. Ozone thickened the air. I stood before the gem. Up close, I saw it wasn't stone at all. It was a storm trapped, spinning forever. For Mia, I whispered. I reached out. Leather-wrapped fingers touched the surface. There was no explosion in the room, but inside my skull it was as if a bomb detonated. The leather gloves, the insulation I trusted, smoked and dissolved in a single second. I screamed, but I couldn't pull back. The gem locked onto my right hand like iron to a magnet. A cold heat, impossible, but real, surged from my palm up my arm. I saw it clear, brutal. The veins under my right arm's skin swelled and flared into bright blue. Flesh felt like it was being torn apart and rebuilt. The pain was crushing, but at the same time, a violent alien strength was being driven straight into my heart. The hourglass in my inner pocket shook hard. My heart beat with the gem. Then the pain stopped. Clean, sudden. I exhaled and dropped to one knee. The dragon gem no longer hovered. It sat in my right hand. Its light softened like a beast that had just been broken to a leash. My right arm. It was wrong now. Blue lines rose under the skin like a circuit map, and I felt like I could smash stone with a fist. I did it. I staggered upright and turned toward Cleo. A victory smile pulled at my mouth even as sweat ran into my eyes. Cleo, look, we're alive, my sister Will. The words jammed in my throat. Cleo wasn't smiling. She had moved close without sound, a shadow with a heartbeat. Her amber eyes held no warmth, no ally's light. They were filled with deep sorrow and a ruthless final decision. You did well, Riven. What are you saying? We have to go Vulture. I didn't see the strike. I only felt a brutal impact crash into the back of my neck. Not claws. She didn't use claws. She used the edge of her hand hard as steel, striking the nerve point behind my skull. The world went black at the edges. My legs died under me. I collapsed onto cold stone. The gem rolled out of my hand. My ears rang. I tried to lift my head, but my body no longer answered my mind. My vision smeared, drowned. I saw Cleo bend down. She picked up the gem. Blue light carved her face. A single tear slid down her cheek and fell to the floor with a small, sharp sound right in front of my nose. I'm sorry, but I have no other choice. She turned away. Golden hair flared as she started running for the exit. Stop! I tried to force out, but it broke into nothing. Why? We had just saved each other. I had nearly lost my hands for her. She had held up the ceiling for me. Why? Cleo didn't look back. Her back vanished through the alloy door as it began to close again. She took the gem. She took the antidote. She took Mia's life with her. I lay there alone in the emptied chamber. The hourglass in my pocket was still shedding its final grains. My right arm, the one that had been changed, started to twitch. Blue veins glowed in the dark as if to remind me I wasn't dead. Not yet. But for now, the darkness was swallowing me.